It's really kind of a surreal, suspended animation kind of place right now. The House Republican Conference is not even in session, so they're not in DC. So the temperature on the Republican side, from my perspective, is a lot more calm. They just are, the president doesn't care about this, our voters don't care about this, so therefore we don't care about this. And then on the Democratic side, there's a little bit more action. Hakeem Jeffries is calling the entire Democratic conference back to D.C. this week, so they will be there. There will be press briefings. They'll be talking about the ACA subsidies, and they'll be trying to generate some sort of momentum in one direction or another. But as you just pointed out, as long as the president is not engaged, there's not going to be any forward progress. So the government will be shut down for at least another probably 10 days at a minimum.
So are there any sort of long-term consequences that you should expect coming out of a government shutdown? Of course, this is the longest government shutdown being about 35 days.
Right. Not even is there a long-term impact in terms of just what the government can do. They'll all get back up and running again. The same employees will still be there. All these firings that Russ Vought has done will be overruled by the legal courts, as has been the case since Doge started, and we'll get back to business. And there's not even really an impact from the voters' perspective. When they've shut down in the past, Republicans haven't paid a price for it in elections the next cycle. It's a full year away from the 2026 midterms. So voters are going to forget about this, move on, we'll reopen. The one thing we don't want is a rolling stream of shutdowns. So hopefully they'll reach a deal to reopen, and then they'll keep it open for at least a year or 6 or 7 months.
All right. We'll leave that where it is. I live in the state of New Jersey. We have a governor's election there. I did my early voting this weekend. There's one also in Virginia. How's the Democratic Party, how's the Republican Party looking at those two states?
I think it's interesting to have a conversation about those elections in the context of the shutdown, because one party or the other could generate some momentum based off of what happens on the Tuesday election. So if Democrats pick up both races in Virginia and New Jersey, which is what the polling is currently suggesting, I think Dems are ahead by 5 in Jersey and by 12 in Virginia, then you'll see at least a media narrative or, a talking point for the Democratic Party. The voters are turning away from Trump. They're turning towards the Democratic Party. And if it goes the other direction, the reverse. And it would probably be even more extreme for the Republicans, since that's not consensus and expectations from the polls. So I think it could generate some momentum right when Trump is returning to D.C., right as we're heading into what should be a Veterans Day recess starting on Friday, November 7th. And that could move some things around on the shutdown front.
Where are your eyes most fixed right now? Are any of these races expected to be close?
Not really. I think that, we constantly see New Jersey as the great white whale for the Republican Party. So there's a possibility of some sort of movement there. People will be looking at margins, but pretty much we're expecting a Democratic win in Jersey, in Virginia. It should be a sort of blockbuster year for Democrats as the minority party going into 2026. So there's Supreme Court cases and judges elections in Pennsylvania, Prop 50 in California. There's a lot of things to watch, but it should all generally go in the Democrats' direction, as it would in, the reverse if Democrats controlled everything right now. So not expecting anything major to come out, except for that potential momentum play and media narrative to come out of this.
Henrietta, I can give you some local color here. Being in the greater New York, New Jersey metro market, we're just getting crushed with TV political ads. It's just brutal. What Mr. Citarelli, the Republican candidate for governor, is not doing, he is not running on the coattails of President Trump. He's not invoking Trump and Trumpism and MAGA at all. Does that surprise you, or what does that tell you?
Well, voters tend to vote in sort of a swing. They go in one direction one year, and then they decide they don't like what they just did, and they go backwards, especially when one administration is being really proactive or really active, passing a lot of legislation, very much in the news all the time. Voters tend to not like that. So it makes a lot of sense for Republicans, especially in a state like New Jersey, to run away from MAGA, to run away from Trump, because Trump's approval rating, especially on his core issue of the economy and inflation, is seriously underwater. I believe the worst he's had in both of his terms is his standing with voters on the economy and inflation. And that's, of course, due to the tariffs. Voters don't like the one big, beautiful bill. So I'd be running away from it, too.